Hi, and welcome to the Community Platform Partner webinar. Today's webinar is on marketing and outreach strategies. We're going to hear from the administrators of 3 different community platforms: Connect Northern Virginia, Share New Mexico, and Connect Brevard. In a moment, we're going to start with Susan Sanow, the administrator of Connect Northern Virginia. Unfortunately, we did not record the first minute of her presentation, but we'll pick up near the beginning of her presentation where she's talking about how much she learned from other platforms.
I don't think any of the sites have been developed in a vacuum, except maybe Brevard, who was the first. But to learn from other people is one of the best things I've gotten out of being on the Connect Northern Virginia team. So when we ask the questions about marketing and communications and outreach, my question always is how do you know? How do you know you're making progress? And as the administrator or the project manager on this, it was my job to figure out how do I tell my leadership team or what could be construed as a board of directors, how do we know that we are making any strides being successful, or where are we still having issues? So we plugged into our Google Analytics information, and I developed a dashboard. And I can tell you nobody on the team said, I need a dashboard. But I felt as the project manager, I could not communicate this in a way that they would all go, oh, yay, progress, or uh-oh, what's wrong? So what I've shared with you, and I know you can download this in the email from Mark, he included this, so you can have a piece of paper in front of you after the call. But we look at, or the number one question I ask is, what should we be looking at? What should we be counting? So I've given you a sample dashboard. I look at the site overall, what all of Connect Northern Virginia is doing, and then we break it down depending on the investments we have from our different jurisdictions. We can look at things by either jurisdictional issues or by issue areas. All depends on what you're looking for and what your purpose and vision and goals for the site. But we were very interested in watching the number of registered users. We launched in September 2013. We now have 542 registered users. We've actually higher than the data that I've shared. When we launched in September of 2013, we had 96 registered users and now 542. So I know we are making progress if that's what you want to count. Now, not everybody on my team likes to count that. I don't care. That, to me, is a measure of saying we are making progress. We also have entered the world of social media earlier this year, so I'm watching Facebook likes, which, as you can see from this report, is fairly minimal, only 65. I'm disappointed in that, but that's something that we're working on. And our total Twitter followers is really nice because we've gone from 51 back in September to up to 258 now. And again, imagine talking to your investors, your funders, the other people on your team, or new people when they come to your team. You can get a good sense and communicate it well of how we're doing. One of the things that I love to answer when people say, so is anybody visiting? Yes, we have over 16,000 visitors since we launched. And they go, ooh, and it makes me happy that we're able to spit back that data. It's like when a funder asks you about what do you do, and every time you can tell the story with data, this certainly supports it. So of the more than 16,000 visitors, we have more than 10,000 unique visitors. So people who are doubting will say, oh, okay, now I get it. And so it really expresses what we're doing. Internally, we look at the average pages per visit. It's a weird one to talk about in the rest of the world because they don't really understand the context, but it's important to me to see once people are using it, how far are they going into the site. And also, how long a time are they spending on the site? That tells me the content is either freshened properly or needs to be refreshed. And then I always like to let our leadership team know about the percentage of new visitors. We want to know that we're continuing to bring, not to depend on the 536 registered users, but continue to bring in new people to visit the site on a regular basis. I followed the data for a year and then have now switched it to, we have our first year, or we have from our time of launch, so I'm doing it consistently since September 2013. I have first year data, and then I have year 2 data. So that will tell me how we're doing from year to year. As you can see in the green, the year 2 report, we have 2,400 visitors. That's since September. And so our goal is to surpass the previous year of 14,000. A little goal setting as well as just how you doing. Right now, I present all the data in a chart. I am thinking about as we grow in data, we can do some more graphing so people can have a visual look of how we're doing. In the second area of monthly report of activities, I want the leadership team to know how we're doing from month to month, where our strengths are, where our weaknesses are, and this report I've toned down considerably for you, but I give every monthly report since September 2013. And what I like is that I can look at September 2014 and look at it compared to 2013. We know there are ebbs and flows of activity. We're about to go into a very quiet time this week with Thanksgiving. Our November numbers will probably drop, but I can see the pattern from year to year. So the first year was just data, just posting raw data. Now that we're in our second year of looking at numbers, we can look at trends and expectations, and either I can calm people down. Why was there a drop? Well, people, we have the 4th of July, and it drops the 4th of July, or it drops during the summer. So I can explain a little bit. Or if we're perhaps having some issues, some stumbling, we'll be able to detect that as a trend and be able to do something about that. And again, I look at the jurisdictional numbers. I've given you information in that last chart from Connect Loudoun, which is our Loudoun County area, which is outside of DC, and they can look at their visitors, their unique visitors, and the amount of time visited. Similar, but not the same as what we're looking at the overall site. There's lots of data on Google Analytics, an enormous amount of data. You could spend your life looking at that data. You need to figure out what is important to your site, your organization, what you're looking for. We have some questions from our other users, and I'm able to pull that type of data as needed, but it's been really exciting and really helpful as the project manager to be able to tell our users, our funders, our committee folks about what our Connect site is really doing. Any questions? And you can either ask me, or there is that box on the right-hand side where towards the bottom there's a chat area. You can ask everybody. Everybody can see the question. No questions?
Hi, Susan. This is Susan Campbell from Lincoln, Shreveport, Louisiana, and I'm just excited about the data that you're able to collect and how you've presented it. And we've talked before on the phone, and
yes.
We have not really rolled ours out yet, so that I'm excited when we are able to do that, so that we can. So I like the table and how it's easy to read, and I think someone that isn't familiar with any type of data analysis can read this table. And so that's what I really like about it.
Well, I think thank you, Susan. We had a lovely conversation, everybody. I think you also have to ask yourself, what if you didn't present the data? How else would you be telling your leadership team, or however else you're structured? How do you know personally? When you wake up in the morning, how are you doing? I'll wake up and I actually look at the registered users either every day or every few days. And I now know, or I'm learning the pattern, to expect probably about 20 to 25 registered users every month. And not say to ourselves, our goal is to have 1,000 registered users by the end of December. Well, that's not going to happen. But I will tell you, at the beginning of the year, we were around 250, I think, and my goal was to get to 500, and we reached that by October. So to share that kind of news to my leadership team was really empowering for me, and letting them know that we're on the right track. And that, to me, is part of my job, is to push them along in the right way, or not let them stray and think that we need to do work in an area where things are going well, or they need to do some things. Well, seeing that there's no further questions, or you can hold them to the end. I just wanted to point out the other document that thing we've done, action we've done, and I really do encourage, and again, nobody told me to do this, it was just my crazy idea, is that I am determined to ask our registered users, remember we have 542 right now, ask them questions on a regular basis. So we did a user survey back in July, and what my goal is to have this user survey done every 6 months until perhaps the site grows so big we would probably go to every once a year. But right now our goal is for every 6 months. Some of the questions sound really stupid, but are you a registered user? A couple people told me no, so it's like, uh-oh, we have some work to do. We're really interested in how they're using the site, what they are using it for. We're always looking for stories to use, storytelling ideas, so we can encourage more people to use the site. We're looking for a reaction on how they're using the site, if they're happy with it, how they're using that mapping search feature, because we think that that is so rich. And we often give what I call a tour. It's actually a webinar on how to use the site. We would think all the registered users would know how to use it, but our survey told us no, they still need more information. They may have figured out how to register, but they don't know how to use everything else, so how to make the most of this. And then just going down the questions, to me, the most important is what would you tell others? Because we're looking for that story again to promote the site. How can we improve it? Because we want that conversation to go two-way. We don't want people to be mad at us and not have anybody to tell, or just walk away from the site and badmouth us. And then how satisfied are you with Connect Northern Virginia? It's so we can get, again, more data, more stories to tell, so we can tell others, 92% of our users love us, and you need to register and become part of the site. So I encourage you, remember the registered users, you can download all their email addresses. It's very easy to do, and to just keep that communications path open. I did have a question, are you only using Facebook and Twitter? We only started using Facebook and Twitter in the fall when we felt our capacity was good enough to be able to add those additional social media sites. There's a lot of talk about adding us to LinkedIn, but as you know, with every addition that you make to social media is another need for my time to either post things or have a volunteer post, or we actually hired somebody to do our social media for several months. So it's a good investment, but I think you need to figure out what your capacity is, because I'd rather do one thing well than fail at three different social media sites. Another question is, based on the Google Analytics, what are the characteristics of a successful visit or engagement? That's something that you need to ask yourself in your site. What we were looking at are some of those things on that dashboard. We were looking at the number of registered users. We were looking at how much time they were visiting a page, and how many pages they visit, as well as the number of minutes they're at in the site. So you can see from this, for overall, they're usually going to about between 4 and 5 pages, and that's been rather consistent. And the time spent on the site is between around 5 minutes, which we're happy about. But you can ask your own site or your own team what they're looking for. One of the things that I've been asked to add to this, and I haven't done it yet, is any significant event, be able to track that. So if we're doing a major outreach event, to add that. If we've done a United Way meeting, mention that. So people want to know why there are boosts as well as drops. So anything you can do to help communicate that, I think would be helpful. Any other questions on the either user survey or the dashboard? Seeing none. Mark, I turn it back to you.
Thank you. Tom, were you going to say something?
Oh, no, just thank you, Susan.
Yeah, thank you. That was really helpful. And I think we've been asked by a couple different administrators to maybe do an entire webinar on Google Analytics and really delve into that, because there is, like you said, a lot of information. And I've been using it for quite a number of years, and I still get confused by their user interface sometimes. There's a lot there, but there's almost too much to be useful. So maybe we'll have a webinar focused specifically on that.
Let me just say, can I add? I would not have your leadership team or whoever is guiding your organization let them free on Google Analytics, because they are going to get in the weeds and stomp around in the weeds for a very long time. And that's why developing the dashboard to me was helpful, is that it kept them out of stuff that was just too much. They have we have nobody has any real guidance on what does a really great site look like yet, because we're still relatively new, and I was scared our leadership team would be comparing us to Google itself, or something, a major Amazon, a major site, and we need to develop our own successes and where we need to work, and that's based on our own dashboard. That's it.
Great, thank you, Susan. Also, just a note, I know that in the email that I sent out this morning, I put 2 links in there to download the documents. One of those links is actually broken, and that's my fault. I just copied and pasted it wrong. But the other link, if you download it, has both of the things that Susan just showed you. It has the Google Analytics dashboard and the user survey on the second page. So thank you, Susan, and I'm going to turn the stage over to Debbie or Wendy or both. I'm not sure if Debbie's on the call or if Wendy was going to speak instead.
I am. We're both here today, I think. So I'll do the introductions and then I'll turn over to Wendy.
Okay.
Thank you, Susan. That was great. We're kind of struggling with the same things that I think some of the other partners are. Just to give you some of the comparisons of where we are relative to some of the things that Susan presented. So here's the Share New Mexico site. We also look at Google Analytics. It's something that I've kind of struggled to understand and to pick what's going to be most meaningful, and then more importantly, what activity and what actions are that we're doing on the ground that make a difference for Share. So that, I'm trying to figure out, it's more than just numbers, it's about what's action behind it and how people are using the site relative to the manner that we intended. But just to give you some overall numbers, we've been live a little over a year and a half. We have about 60,000 unique visitors that have been to the site, and progress that I have seen is that over time, as I've watched these analytics, about 80% of the users were new and about 20% returning, and we're starting to see success and progress in that area. So now it's about 70% are new and more like 30% are returning. So we're seeing some positive trends there. We have about 845 registered users, and it's interesting, Susan was just talking about a user survey. We just did that. So we're getting ready to go into a strategic planning retreat with our advisory committee, and what we want to be able to tell them is who's coming to the site and how are they using it. I use the term over and over. We're only successful if it's used and useful, or people are using it to make a difference. So I think Wendy can share with you a little bit more of the details on what we are finding in that user survey. But basically what we did is we went to the 845 registered users and basically asked them, you've registered for Share New Mexico, have you been back to the site, how often do you visit, which pages are the most meaningful to you, etc. And again, Wendy can kind of help you with some of that. I'm also looking at pretty much the same things that Susan's looking at. So how I know we're achieving some penetration is that the number of page views. People are starting to, it was around 2 page views in about 2 minutes on the site. And now we're starting to see people spend a little bit more time. We're like 3.5 minutes and maybe 3 to 4 page views. How we're also measuring interaction is what are people submitting. Our calendar of events has turned out to be a really popular feature, and as a matter of fact, in the last couple of weeks, we've presented to 2 of the biggest managed care organizations in the state, so Blue Cross Blue Shield of New Mexico and also Presbyterian Healthcare. We are finding that healthcare providers and community health workers that are doing mobile activity out in the community, so say a flu van or something like that, they want to coordinate with other partners around the state and host maybe, you know, like mini health fairs. They want to say, if we're going to be in a different county, a different location, how can we, you know, let others know that we're going to be there, and maybe the food banks or the food pantries want to join us. And so we're finding that kind of activity start to surround that calendar of events. So we're looking at that closely. I'll also mention we do have a Facebook page. We were around like 30, 40, 50 likes for a really long time, and I can give you a little tip on that. We're over, I can't remember the exact number, 300, I think. I haven't been in the last few weeks, but what we found on the likes is that if you boost it, so if I posted something about an event or about an activity or a new issue page or something on Share New Mexico, if we boost it, and you can do that for like $5 and identify how long you want it to be out there, etc. Then I started to reach friends of friends and people that were liking other pages similar to Share that I didn't exactly know them, but they're in the same community, the same type interest. And so we're using Facebook, and I had to realize too, like Susan said, I'm out of capacity, and so I've encouraged my team to also post things on the Share Facebook page, that it's not just about me, it's really about the community, and we're seeing that, and that is creating some momentum and some interest. I would just say too, where we've had success as well is that really on the ground outreach and marketing. That when we first launched Share New Mexico, we were going to do a big press conference, and we had the mayor of Albuquerque who was going to come out, and the Kellogg Foundation, who's a big sponsor of Share New Mexico, and our directory wasn't quite where we needed it to be, so we decided to pull back and take more of a softer approach on launch. And I would say where we've seen the most success right now is with Wendy Wintermute. She's definitely involved in the community. Our issue pages are very compelling for Share New Mexico. And so she's on the ground and in the meetings and encouraging people to realize that Share New Mexico, we kind of call it a Wikipedia type model, that when people say, well, how are you going to update our information and how are you going to make sure that resource directory is accurate? Wendy is so brilliant at always saying it's us. It's us together. So we're going to work with you, but we're building the tools. We're trying to make things easy so that you can update your organizational information because you know it better than anybody else. So with that, I think, unless anybody has any questions, I don't see any for me, I'll go ahead and turn to Wendy. Is she on? Wendy, are you there?
I
know she.
I see.
I know
her
I saw her log
there.
in.
I see her listed
Yeah,
there, but I
I
don't
see her
hear
now.
her. Wendy, if
Okay.
you can hear us, we can't hear you.
Okay. Well, then just let me ask, are there any questions, or Mark or Thomas, or anything else that you'd like for me to cover?
I think it'd be useful, Debbie, just to talk a little more about the outreach that you all have done in the community over the the past couple of years here.
Okay,
And
sure,
just,
I'd be glad
kind of
to.
what that looks like.
Yeah, I'd be glad to. Okay, Wendy's going to try calling in.
Okay.
Yeah, what we have done, and again, it's really around the issue pages. Some that we've gotten on Share New Mexico is that it's too much, that people don't know exactly where to go and what to do. And our target audience is people that, like all of us, we're pretty busy. And to come to another website and to, even though we've got amazing data on grants and grant makers that we got from the Foundation Center, and we just have all these amazing tools and resources, it takes time to get to know a website. So what we did is we developed these documents that are called 5 Ways Share Can Help You. And so we targeted them for funders, for nonprofits. We have a big, huge initiative around early childhood. So each of those audiences we just took and we broke it down. And we really think people just need one good reason to come to Share, but we wanted to give them 5. So those have been very successful, and it's simple stuff like you can find resources in the resource directory, and here's an example, or you can post an ad on our classified ads, and here's an example. So breaking it down, I do a lot of presentations at big groups like New Mexico Association of Grant Makers, and then like I said, Wendy does a lot of stuff, and we have other folks that work with us as well that are in those meetings, like I would say community-based meetings. So what we are finding, and what I'll be presenting to our board at our strategic planning retreat, is that we really believe the greatest value of Share New Mexico is built around those issue pages. So for example, we had big funders, the McCune Charitable Foundation in Santa Fe and the Kellogg Foundation, and they were doing a lot of work in a component of a county in New Mexico. So we've got a county for every page. Mark, you want to pull up the South page, or I can if you give me controls. But we had a lot of activity going on in those areas. And so we have a page for every county in New Mexico, but there was so much going on in this particular area called the South Valley that people wanted their own issue page for the South Valley. And so this is what it looks like. Wendy was involved in those community meetings. And so what we did is we pull all the different components. I think some of you also have issue pages. So you know that we pulled components from the different features of Share, the calendar, the directory, and we have then like these collaboratives. So the text on the upper left hand next to the photo, those are collaboratives, and that'll take you out to what those groups are doing. And then it just kind of caught wind. And through Wendy's coaching and asking people, well, how can you use Share and how can this be meaningful to you? Now we're in a situation where people want to bulk upload their calendar of events because maybe they're doing cooking classes for people that are trying to promote healthier eating and reduction of diabetes. Then we also had a woman that was a former journalist, and she works at a healthcare organization here in New Mexico, and she wanted to start writing a blog about healthy living in the South Valley, and so we created space for that as well. So what we're trying to do is just be very responsive to the needs and understand, but then put the platform back in the hands of the users, because that's the only way this is going to work. I could never hire enough staff. We do have amazing funding support, but our funders also want us to be self-sustaining. So I can tell you as well that these issue pages people are willing to pay for. And now the managed care organizations and the HMOs, they even want to be sponsors. And they want to see their logo on Share New Mexico so that they can get that recognition. So I see that Wendy is back on. If you have any questions, I mean, I'll still be here, but I'll turn it to Wendy and ask her to give you a little bit more information on the user survey and what we're finding there.
Okay, thank you. I missed a little bit in between. I'm actually in between meetings with our blogger. So I'm at the South Valley First Choice Community Health Center writing Share into another grant proposal for the state. So while I'm on it, I did just want to say that I think because our initial sponsor was Diane Ogawa from the PNM Foundation, who has such wonderful connections with the New Mexico funders, we've been fairly successful in getting ourselves written into some other grants, offering to provide the information platform for a number of these grants. So, for example, we are now part of a federal CDD grant called REACH, and that's going to help us pay for building out our food page, which should be really terrific. This one will help us build out, if we get it, will help us build out our early childhood page. I don't know if Debbie mentioned that ConAlma is paying for an aging page, and Presbyterian Health Foundation is also paying for our community health page. So we're having some good luck there, and so I just took some time out from a grant writing session here to run to this webinar, and I'm on somebody else's computer. So I can't really show you the results from the survey, but we do have about 62 responses from our 800 registered users. I'm trying to get up to the benchmark of 10%. So I'm trying to get us up to 80. Some of them are saying, oh gosh, I didn't realize you were up and running. I'll have to go try you again. So that tells us that we are now finally ready for a really aggressive, is that the right word? For really out there marketing pitch to everybody saying, yes, we're back on. We've always been on. We're better than ever. We've got some new features. Come try us again. So that's a quick read on what our user survey, I think, is telling us now, other than our target audience, which tends to be manager-type people of health and social service agencies. So our two most popular sites are the ones that are probably the most built out, which is the resource directory and the maps and data. We've also, though, got a lot of grants and grant makers calling in, coming into our site. They were the third most popular user. So that's some of what we're finding out. We are being very opportunistic in terms of community outreach. So anytime there's a health fair or gathering like that, we are there signing people up. And now we're trying to really put together teams to support our issues and initiatives page, because it is too much for one person. And as Debbie pointed out, what we're telling people is that we are community built, so this is going to be as good as we all make it. So can we put together teams now for each one of those issues pages, and so we'll have enough support to populate those pages. So how's that for overview? Quick overview.
Any questions? Thank you, Wendy. That was, and Debbie, that was great.
Oh, I see that Susan Sano asked a question. She said, how has the click here to suggest content for this page worked? Are you getting helpful ideas?
You know,
yes.
Go ahead, Wendy.
I was going to say, well, we are certainly encouraging people to do that. I think we have two ways that people can give feedback. One is the little orange button at the top, but the other is, if you scroll up, Debbie, it's the feedback.
Oh,
that's the little smaller feedback thing, which goes to the UI team and us. And for some reason, we seem to be getting more responses from that little bitty button than the big button.
Yeah, I would agree. And to answer Susan's question directly, we really haven't seen a lot of that. We haven't seen a lot of people clicking. So where we've had the success is, say, like on another of these issue pages, we created one for community health. And the woman that leads that, she works at Presbyterian Healthcare, and she's kind of convening the suggestions for content on the page. And what we kind of have some overarching criteria for doing those issue pages, and it is that they agree to be the champions, if you will, for those pages. So we like having the suggest here for content for this page, because we're trying to encourage that interaction, but as of yet, it hasn't been a highly used feature. People are using the feedback form on every page, and we encourage that as well.
Are there any other questions? Okay, well, thank you so much, Debbie and Wendy. And maybe at the end, people will come back with some more questions or conversation about the things you brought up.
Great, thank you. Yeah, I'm going to have to go. I have another pressing issue, but sure, I'm glad to do any follow-up, and I don't know how long Wendy can stay on, but I'm definitely available if there's any other questions. Thanks, Mark.
Okay, thanks, Debbie.
And I'll stay on for a little bit longer.
Okay. Thanks, Wendy. So we can move along from New Mexico to Brevard County. And Sandy, if you're on, I guess I'll show your platform, because it looks like you're not on. I can't make you the presenter.
I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Yes.
Hi, Sandy.
Yep.
Oh, good. So thank you. And it's certainly educational to hear the other speakers and what they're doing. I'm the panelist representing the small organization with the site that's unfunded. We do not have grants that support it. We're a community foundation, and it is a tool that's a vital function in our work, but it's much like accounting software in that it's a tool, that's how it's ended up, is it's a tool to accomplish an end, but it's not an end in itself. We've had the site for several years, and our use of it is probably different than the full vision for the platform, and that is entirely due to our capacity, but it's no less valuable to us. The key benefit that we as an organization experienced early on is the same today as it was then, and that is that it puts us front and center as the county's knowledge center and information resource about the nonprofit sector. Initially, to market, we did a number of things that many of you have probably already heard about, as far as creating business cards that we sent out and had stacks of them available at advisors' offices. We did a training brochure. We conducted training of the nonprofit organizations with them and how they could enhance their page. We had billboards, articles in various print publications, did presentations to groups such as Rotary and Kiwanis, met with advisors about who might need to find organizations or verify tax status of organizations. So that was all part of the rollout. We had enormous and enthusiastic print media coverage. We then took on the Food Gap Mapping Project in partnership with a couple of other organizations. It was very productive, and to this day, it's probably the most trafficked page on the site, because a lot of the organic visits are from that Foods Gap page. But we've not updated it, and so now, and it was part of a whole community initiative to eliminate hunger in the community. And so we mapped 130 some pantries and the overlays, and all of that was terrific at that time. Again, it's outdated now. We've tried on a couple of occasions to encourage nonprofits to list their volunteer opportunities, and I will recommend that you not go to that, because I'll be too embarrassed for you to see that. No, we do get calls from people wanting to volunteer, and we've tried on many occasions to try to encourage nonprofits to post their volunteer opportunities, because we know that they have opportunities and they're looking for volunteers. But we've been unable to get traction on that page. We also know that if we were to staff it and seed it, then we'd be able to build it. But we are stumped as to how else to make that happen. It would take a whole campaign, and we simply don't have the capacity to do it. So how do we promote it? How do we get any traffic to it at all? Well, what we've done since then, and this works effortlessly, and is that we've integrated it within the work that we do in a number of ways. So instead of it being a standalone and having its whole marketing theme, it is part of what we do. So during our grant making, if the information we need for grant applications is on Connect Brevard, they don't have to send it as part of their package. And so that ends up driving people to check their information. We planned a workshop for nonprofits this year that we did on the 990 as a marketing tool, and talked about donor usage of the site and ways to enhance information on Connect Brevard. We pull information from the site whenever we're speaking to groups as part of our Endow Brevard's Future campaign. So as we're talking to retirees of a company or military officer retirees or whatever it is that we're doing, part of what we're talking about is the sector overall, and so to give current numbers and information, and so pulling from that and referencing Connect Brevard, it is more integrated with what we do. We routinely get questions from nonprofit organizations about other local grant-making opportunities, and we direct them to the private foundations listed on Connect Brevard and how to search for matching missions. So it's almost like a just-in-time teaching tool or teaching opportunity that makes it very relevant to the questions that come in. We do use it in legacy gift planning to create lists for donors of local registered organizations that may be serving a specific purpose. And of course, we use it regularly to verify registered organizations. The media has a tendency to feature lots of nonprofits that are doing wonderful things that are not technically registered. And so it gives us an opportunity. We do the research, we point them to the site, and what happens is we end up doing some education about how to properly file for a nonprofit status. We do see that sector data is becoming more and more popular, and I can envision a need for more standardized reports. In fact, we have a couple, and that have been very helpful, that can serve as a barometer of the sector and its practices. And that seems to be very useful to not only the nonprofit sector, but just the community as a whole. When we focus on and market a specific project, such as a custom mapping or a sector report, then that project drives people to the site and our traffic increases. But we have to take on a project. It is a resource. I believe that it is a known resource. I still hear people that refer to, have you checked Connect Brevard? It's not a standalone. It is a tool that is part of our overall toolkit and what we do. And if there are any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Oh, I see that Shri asked a question in the GoToMeeting window. It says, how do you handle turnover in your teams or champions? Oh, for issue pages. That must have come before for New Mexico. I'm sorry, I didn't see it quick enough.
Yeah.
We'll have to come back to that one later. That was actually a question for the New Mexico team. So we'll hold off on that and see if there's any questions for Sandy at Connect Brevard.
Well, Sandy, this is Tom. Thank you very much. One question. Seems like you have a very good working relationship with the local press, and that's really helped your overall efforts. And I don't know if you could say a few words about that.
Yeah, well, that started out because we did an on-site training with all of the reporters and department heads of the local Gannett paper, and to show them the site and make them aware of the tool and how it worked. They were very excited about it and saw that it would help their operations. Around the same time that we were rolling it out, they were also taking a new community focus to their reporting. And so it's been very much a partnership. They're now putting together that'll be released in a couple of weeks, a giving guide and of the nonprofit community. And so they've called us for information and data, and it's a service that they're going to provide. So it's for the community, which is wonderful. And they will include some sector reporting in that. Because of the financial data and the trends that we've seen in the area, I was talking to the president and publisher about 2 weeks ago and just commenting on some what I would call alarming information that we're seeing from the financial standpoint in the individual subsectors, whether it's arts or animal welfare and environment, human services. And so we were chatting about that, and he was very excited about that information and thought that maybe there was a way they could help bolster by doing a series, and now he's talking about wanting to do a weekly series on each of the subsectors. So we formed the relationship by having information that the media appreciates. They like having factual information. And then have built on that because they've recognized us, but only because of thanks to Urban and NCCS and the community platform, because of the data that they've made available. It's helped us in terms of our own credibility in providing information that they need. That's a long way around to your answer, but
thank you.
But it's been an ongoing relationship for several years, and they're very quick to. And when we see that they're reporting something that maybe they shouldn't, it's just a very amicable relationship, and I think they've come to rely on us as being the source of information.
I should also mention that Sandy was working with Bryce McKeever, who's on my research team, to develop this mini report, and Bryce is in the process of kind of making all those reports standardized so that any of our partners can just run those when they want from the reports menu. I think that's largely done.
That would be awesome, because it is the reports that help to drive a fair amount of traffic to the site. And so what we're seeing is we have to regularly produce reports in order to kind of keep that traffic driving to the site, because it's being used as a resource, but we cannot. I welcome suggestions, but we cannot seem to get folks to post their volunteer opportunities. And we've tried. We've had a few from time to time that have posted, and it's great, but if you only have 2 opportunities, it truly does need to be part of a whole campaign. And we just don't have the resources to do it. In fact, as I was listening to the other presenters, I thought one webinar that may be helpful is so what is the angle, and how do you find funding to fund a resource base like this? Because we do not seem to do it. We don't have the unrestricted funds. We're not able to fund it. So I admire those who have been so successful in being able to raise the dollars and the staff. We have 2.5 staff as part of our total foundation and everything that we do, and we're managing the site in addition to everything else that we do. We don't have dedicated staff to it. And that's where the integration becomes so important, to be able to integrate it within our regular work.
So one of kind of my pet interests is in seeing partners build up their mailing list and then begin to really develop weekly or monthly emailings that go out to community members that inform them about both trends in the sector and maybe profile particular organizations or particular fields, and tell good stories as well as just providing data. Has anybody done anything like that yet? That's on the phone?
We were just, this is Wendy, and we were just talking about that. We help support another website for early childhood people, and they do a bi-weekly e-blast, and it's just very short. It's mostly to drive people to the website. So here's a function or a new report or something new on the website. Would you like to check it out?
Right.
But I like this idea, too, of good stories. And what else did you say? Good stories and...
stories and statistics, but it could include those volunteer opportunities, too, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So, for example, we're having trouble getting volunteer postings too, and it's prominently displayed on our website, and we're working with a partner, and we're still having difficulties. So maybe it's something, I don't know what it is, but maybe we could also then, as you say, use that to point out an underused bit of our website. So we've just started to talk about that. We do have constant contact, so we're hoping to use that to send out some e-blasts, maybe once a month to start with, beginning of the year.
Great.
Great. And it's interesting because you talk about the volunteers being, and it's not that there's not a need, and we don't have a volunteer center in the county, and there are people who want to volunteer, but I think it's a very crowded space out there of announcements and emails and news, and a lot of nonprofits that are that are trying to find profile within the community. So it's a very crowded space, and it's part of the reason we've probably been more selective as far as doing a weekly email. I know there are several organizations that do that, and what happens is the first couple get read, and then it's like, okay, here's yet another email. And so it is something to look at, and if someone tries it, to to really look at that tracking over time, and do they get opened, and are they read? Or so when we do something, it ends up being special, and then it gets large. It gets large attention, and we just have found that seems to be works for us, I guess.
And
one of the things we were hoping to One of the things we were hoping to be able to do, and we'll talk with our UI partners on this, is how we might be able to segment our registered users list in terms of their areas of interest. For example, in our case, we could target people by county and also issue area. So we're going to, hopefully Mark and Tom, we're going to be working with you to see if that's at all possible in the new year.
That
Not
sounds
right
like
now.
a good idea.
And Sandy, what I was going to say is actually, and this is less helpful for you because your platform has been established, but whenever I'm working with new administrators who are working on a site that has not yet launched, and so I'm saying this more for other people's benefit, is that I often recommend that it would be most helpful to launch a classified section with it already sort of over that hump of having a few listings in each category, because exactly what you're saying makes sense, is that if you come to the site and it's empty, you think, okay, this is always going to be empty. And if you come in, there's one or two, and you don't see anything for you, you think this probably is just not going to have listings for me. And so we sort of say you need to get over that initial inertia. And I know it's easier said than done, but that's sort of the suggestion that I've made for newer platforms, to try to stock it.
I think that's right.
Yourself.
Yeah,
so the first time someone comes, they get the impression, oh, this is a really popular volunteer opportunities page. I'm going to come back here next time.
Right.
Susan, are you still online? Susan actually is part of a volunteer center in Northern Virginia.
Yes, I'm still here.
I don't know if you have any thoughts on.
Well, we have. Our challenge here in Northern Virginia is we have actually 5 volunteer centers in Northern Virginia. So we actually don't promote the volunteer area. We do list it on the site, but we then just bounce them directly to the site, the volunteer center site, because we're trying not to be in competition. I think the pre-population idea is a way to go, so people know what to expect. And if there's something really, a really great volunteer opportunity, like it's the Thanksgiving week, to send out to your registered users, or post on Facebook, or what, other methods to get the information out, to let them know that you do have this information, and it's good and trustworthy and current.
And just as a volunteer center, how do you go about getting organizations to post their opportunities with you?
It's the marketing like anything else, just telling them, and then being successful if they can post with you, and then volunteers show up and they know why they showed up first, via your contact information. It's no different than marketing any other opportunity, sadly enough.
Yeah. Okay.
No secrets, sorry.
Sorry. Thank you. Any other questions?
Well, I had a quick thing I discovered on Facebook, now that Debbie's asking us to do Facebook. I discovered if you like other people and follow other people in New Mexico, you not only make them happy, but you can repost their postings if they're relevant. And it's really easy to do, so I've started doing that.
Neat. So, what do you have a sense of what your New Mexico marketing budget is? I mean, it sounds like the Facebook boosters are inexpensive to do.
Mm-hmm. I don't think we've had to do them very often. We do them once in a while, but I think we really just have people responding to our posts. We try to have a broad range of topics that we post on Facebook. And then again, when we repost something from our friends, then hopefully all their friends watch it, look at it, come to our site.
Right. No, is anybody out there using Google Ads?
I don't know. I don't think so.
I mean, we do spend a good amount of money on Google Ads for our Form 990 online system, or TurboTax for nonprofits, and I'll actually be meeting with an expert in Google Ads to see if we can generate more revenue from it in the months ahead. But it sounds like it's quite an art or science in itself to figure out how to do that well. But you can spend thousands of dollars if you want, but I think you can do it cheaply as well. Sandy, can I ask you one other question? And let me just put you on the spot here. I mean, I remember when your first year with Connect Brevard, and you were relatively new at your job, and I remember you telling me how many meetings you went to over the course of a year.
Yeah. Yeah.
Are you still doing that sort of level of outreach?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I'm doing, and as part of our Endow Brevard's Future campaign, I'm probably doing, in terms of presentations, 2 or 3 presentations a week to groups. So it's getting, we're not. I mean, I would never want anyone to hear me as saying that we are dissatisfied in any way with Connect Brevard. We're not doing as much with it as others are, but we are so completely satisfied with the tool that it is for the purpose that we needed. It'd be nice if it had a couple of other things, because I know you all have been fabulous in helping to pull together information for various presentations, but it's been a great tool, and I wouldn't trade it for the world. It's just I see that it is capable of so much more than we're able to do with it. But that doesn't make it a tool that we don't appreciate. We just aren't fully using all of its features.
Right. Well, thank you. Mark, did you want to close us out?
I don't think I had anything else. I mean, I guess we're at 2 o'clock. I think we had set this as an hour. So I will just thank everyone for coming and for spending the time. Again, please feel free to send us some feedback on this format or the topic, or tell us what other topics you'd like to talk about. Thanks very much.
Thank you all.
Thank
Take care.
you.
Happy Thanksgiving, everybody.
Happy Thanksgiving.